All right, today we are diving into a business idea that has completely changed the game for how companies get started. It's called the lean startup, and it's all about avoiding the single biggest, most painful trap in the world of innovation. So, let's get right into it.
So, to really get why this approach is such a big deal, we have to start with a pretty terrifying question for any entrepreneur. What's the number one reason startups fail? You might think it's, running out of money, or the competition is just too tough, or maybe even just bad luck.
Well, the real answer is kind of brutal. They fail because they build something that nobody actually wants. After all that work, all that money, all those sleepless nights, they launch their big idea to complete silence. And that is the exact painful problem that the lean startup was created to solve.
So first, let's talk about that old way of doing things, that traditional path that so often takes brilliant ideas and leads them straight off a cliff.
You know, the story behind the lean startup is actually pretty personal. It all begins with its founder, Eric Ries. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, he poured everything he had, his time, his money, his energy, into his first company. He followed all the rules from business school, and it failed, big time.
What he went through is what we now call the classic startup trap. You know the one. You hide away for months, sometimes even years, just working in secret to perfect your product. You keep adding more features, polishing every little detail until it's just right. Then you have the big launch, only to find out the customers you were so sure would show up just don't care.
But all that frustration, it actually sparked something. Ries realized that the entire approach to building a business was totally backward. It couldn't be about secret plans and grand visions. It had to be about one thing: learning. Rapid, continuous learning.
And this is what came out of it. The lean startup isn't really about being cheap. It's about being smart. It's about not wasting time or money. You can almost think of it like the scientific method, but for creating a business. The whole point is to get out of the office and put a real product, even a super early version of it, in front of real customers as fast as you can to learn what they really think. This right here, this captures the whole mindset shift. Most of the time, smart, creative people are focused on the question, can we build this? And the answer is usually, yeah, probably. But the lean startup forces you to stop and ask a much, much more important question first. Okay, but should we build this? Does anyone out there actually want this enough to pay for it?
So how do you answer a big question like that? Well, the answer is in the engine that drives this entire thing, a simple, powerful, and endlessly repeatable feedback loop. It's called the build, measure, learn loop, and it's brilliant in its simplicity. First, you build the most basic version of your idea possible. Then, you measure how real customers react to it. And we're talking about what they do, not just what they say. And finally, you learn from that data to decide what to do next. The name of the game is speed. You want to spin through this cycle as fast as you possibly can. And the key to that build step is the famous minimum viable product, or MVP. Now, this is a really crucial concept. An MVP is not just a buggy or cheap version of your final product. It's the absolute smallest thing you can create to start learning from customers. Sometimes it's a simple website. Sometimes it's a presentation. And as we'll see, sometimes it's not even a product at all.
Now, for the measure phase, you've got to think differently about your metrics. Early on, you're not tracking profit. You're tracking learning. Ries calls this innovation accounting. So instead of asking, how much money did we make, you're asking things like, did our last change get more people to sign up? Or are people coming back and using this more often? This is called validated learning, and trust me, it's the real currency of a startup.
Okay, I know this can all sound a little bit theoretical, so let's make it concrete. Let's look at how this works in the real world with some now famous examples of MVPs.
First up, Dropbox. Before everyone and their grandmother used it, the founders had a huge problem. They had to prove to investors that people actually wanted this weird, magical file syncing service, a thing that was really hard to explain and was going to be incredibly complex to build. So what did they do? What was their MVP? They built nothing. Instead of taking years to build the complicated technology, their MVP was just a 3-minute video. Seriously, it was a simple video showing what Dropbox would do, filled with a bunch of inside jokes for their target audience of tech nerds. They put it online, and their sign-up list exploded from 5,000 to 75,000 people. Overnight, they proved people wanted it before they'd written a single line of real code.
Here's another amazing one, Zappos. Today, they're a monster online shoe company. But way back when, they were just testing a really risky hypothesis.
Would people ever buy shoes online without being able to try them on first?
Their MVP was the absolute definition of lean. The founder would go to local shoe stores, take pictures of the shoes, and post them on a super basic website. If somebody actually ordered a pair, he would physically go back to the store, buy the shoes, and mail them out himself. I mean, think about that. No inventory, no warehouse. He was faking the entire business, all just to test that one single all-important question.
And of course, we've got to look at Eric Ries's own company, IMVU. This was the avatar social network where he and his team were basically the guinea pigs for a lot of these very ideas.
By their own admission, their MVP was pretty terrible. It was buggy, it was low quality, it crashed people's computers. But it did one core thing that kind of worked. They gave it to a small group of users, and, this is the important part, they charged them money for it from day one. That gave them real, hard data from paying customers, which let them iterate and improve constantly, based on what people were actually willing to pay for.
So you're going through this build, measure, learn loop over and over. But what happens when the data starts telling you that your core idea is just wrong? Well, that's when you have to master the art of the pivot.
Now, a pivot is not the same thing as giving up. Not at all. It's a strategic, thought-out change in direction that's based on everything you've learned. The best way to think about it is like this. You keep one foot planted in what you know is working, and you move your other foot to test a new, big idea. It's a sign of learning, not a sign of failure.
And honestly, some of the most successful companies in the world are the result of a huge pivot. Twitter started out as a podcasting platform. PayPal was originally for making payments on Palm Pilots. And get this, Nintendo, the video game giant, started in 1889 making playing cards. These companies didn't fail at their first idea. They learned, they pivoted, and they found incredible success.
This whole philosophy, it even changes how you talk to investors. A traditional pitch is all about the grand vision, right? You're asking for a ton of money based on a promise. But a lean pitch, that tells the story of your journey. You present your experiments, your data, the things you learned, the pivots you made. You're not selling a dream, you're showing them the proof.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway of all. The lean startup isn't just for tech companies in Silicon Valley. It is a mindset for anyone, anywhere, who has an idea. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Whatever your big idea is, what is the fastest, cheapest, smallest experiment you could possibly run, maybe even this afternoon, to start learning if it's something the world actually wants?